You turn my morning into dancing. Your love changes everything. Is there something about your love? Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes every. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dance. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love. Something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing.
Tuesday. I'm Tim Morton, Southeast Michigan Director for FCA. And man, I'm just excited to be with you. You know, in every story, there's a hero, a villain, a victim, and a guide. And Jesus Christ was and still is the greatest hero maker of all time. And the reason that we do these recordings is we want to be you to be encouraged, inspired by hearing powerful stories of transformation. We have an amazing one today. And but there would be no heroes without guides. And so that's what this is all about. So we have an amazing hero maker today in Reggie Reed. I want to bring him in to be with us. Welcome, Reggie.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Absolutely. Reggie is serving with us as an empowered leader in Metro Detroit FCA. He's a father, he's a husband, former small college basketball player like myself. It's amazing how much we have in common, but most importantly, he's a child of the living God now. And we have all of that in common. And just to give a little backstory, Reggie came into my life earlier in the year at a Bible study that he entered into. And this just happened to be a very powerful day of testimonies. And I'm on one side of the group, Reggie's on the other side, and he shares his story and shares his heart. And man, you could have heard a pin drop in that place. And after it was all done, we're all just like super inspired by what we heard. The leader, James, he looks right at me and he says, "You got to talk to Reggie." So, and I knew it. So I don't know how long we talked that day. I know we talked for a considerable amount of time, but that's when everything launched. And it's just been so cool to see someone that has been off afar, but has been going on a very similar journey. You know, our pain has come from different places, but who we were before all that was very similar. So I want to give you the floor, Reggie, just to kind of share maybe a little bit the intro into how you got into the group, but then also to share really when you made that decision for Christ to be your Lord and Savior. So I'm going to give you the floor. Yep.
Thanks a lot, Tim. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's very interesting how God works in our lives. So I was at an event out in Oxford, and we were listening to a morning speaker, 5:30 in the morning with 300 men in a room. I was sitting at a table with this gentleman, James Hall, and I said, "I recognize you. I've seen you from somewhere." I said, "I'll have it by the end of the morning." And sure enough, he worked out at the same gym that we used to play hoops at. So we had that kind of connection. And he said, "Hey, Reggie, do you mind if I send you a devotional that we do every Friday?" This was like, I think back in December of 2021. He sent me that email and I looked at it every week. There's a Friday devotional, thought it was pretty impactful. And every week I'd looked at it, but it didn't occur to me to go be part of that group. So I think it ended up being about 16 months later. One morning I opened up the email. It was about God's gifts, what he bestowed on us. What are your gifts was the question. That kind of fired me up. Like, what are my gifts? As a 52-year-old man now playing with a full deck, like, what are my gifts? So I went that morning, and then we were just kind of all of us together transformed. My story is one of abandonment. As a 9-year-old child in Pontiac, Michigan, 2 cops showed up at my front doorstep as a 9-year-old, and I'd gotten into some minor trouble. And the police officer said, "Don't worry, son, we're going to go in and talk with your mother. Everything will be fine. We'll be back out." So they went in, talked with my mother. They came out and said, "You know, there's been a change of plans, and we're going to be taking you with us. And we're going to be going to a place called Children's Village where you're going to stay." So I was shocked. Just an experience that just rocked my world. I always think about it now. If I had that opportunity to go back and they asked me what I wanted to do, I would have never said I wanted to go to Children's Village, right? I would have stayed in the comfort of my home of Pontiac, where I lived for 8-9 years. but God had a different plan for me. So I went to a juvenile home. I was in a low, I guess, wasn't like in a mill or a jail per se. It was really a moderate. Other kids that didn't do anything really, really bad. I was in there for probably 2 to 3 months, and then I went to a foster family. So out in Clarkston, Michigan. So I spent pretty much since the age of 9 to 15 with this family, and I still knew both my parents. We used to go to court every couple weeks, and my mother and father were supposed to do all these things to kind of get me back. They just didn't have the ability. They were mentally ill, on welfare. They just couldn't do it. So I stayed in Clarkston. I really liked this home I was at. They had 5 biological kids, and that now they've adopted a total of 5. So I was the second adopted child. And I think probably 5th or 6th grade, I started playing basketball on the playground at Andersonville Elementary, and just kind of fell in love with this game, and became very, very good at the game. And again, I think that I was just a child that needed to be loved, needed to be cared for. But going through such an experience like that I built up walls and layers, that I was a bandit kid and I was not okay. But when I was on the court, I was okay, because I could perform very, very well, became known as a good shooter, and excelled. I think back in the day, I was going to be in the NBA for sure. I used to tell everybody that, but I was pretty much 24/7. I was playing hoops and playing basketball, shoveling the driveway in the winter, had the ball with me, slept with it. And even when I was in high school, I became very close with the janitor. He used to open the gate for me just a little bit, where I'd slide underneath that at 5:30 in the morning and play. It was my life. I felt sense of peace on that court, but I was a troubled and challenged kid. But the game was my respite. But my whole life was built around that game, and I did very well. But my identity was wrapped up in the basketball. So there was a lot of pain associated with that. If I didn't get 20, 25 points a night, I didn't feel okay. So I was a broken child. And all my validation was through the game. And that's what affirmed me. But what I was missing is really true love. And I think going through a scenario like that I went through, I was just trying to protect myself, and I think it helped me. But that led to, performing well in school. So, and I wanted to play college basketball. So I had an opportunity to play at a small school, mid-Michigan. So I got to, that dream achieved. But I was always achieving, always performing, and getting validated from it. And then got married, had 2 kids. And when my marriage fell apart, that was really rough to go through a divorce. And we went to church, but I never had God in my life. I wasn't a Christ follower, but obviously I was close to church and folks that were religious. I wasn't a believer. And so go through one divorce and go through a second divorce. And this is where I kind of came to Christ. It pretty much broke me. I thought I did everything right. I tried, but something within me, I just realized I could not do it on my own. So there was a picture of Jesus Christ reaching down to the Sea of Galilee for Peter. And I felt him reaching down for me, because all of my life trying to perform, I'd never felt loved unconditionally. And that was the game changer. That was the start of the change for me. But I think I just recognized that I just couldn't do it alone anymore. I mean, I kept trying, but there was just such an emptiness in it. I would excel. I had a great job. I was an executive vice president for a company. I traveled the world, Japan, China, Brazil, throughout Europe. Everything I wanted to achieve, but I was kind of broken inside. So all that emptiness I was trying to fulfill through performance-based. But once I understood that God loved me just who I was, that was a true game changer, and started the process of redirecting and reinventing myself in my heart.
Man, that's powerful. The word I kept thinking about is transformation. You know, you're being slowly transformed, and one way or another, our amazing Lord is going to get our attention. And I think he got our attention. I think that's what bonds us together, is that we were both trying to do it all on our own. And even though Achievement has done some great things in our lives, and those are all been blessed by a lot of that, you know, and certainly the relationships, some of them we still have as a result of all that. But the question is, who are you, right? Who are you? You're not what you do. If you're a child of God, you're his. So it answers those two questions. Who are you and whose are you? And it doesn't mean you're perfect by any standards. And I know being in that group with you, we realize that everybody comes into that room is flawed in some way, shape, or form. We all know it. But It's a safe place to be because we're all coming there for the same reason, because we're seeking something that we know we can't do on our own. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because it takes a lot of courage that we really don't have on our own, to be vulnerable enough to and open enough to share that. So that's why we're here, and that's why I've asked you and I've invited you into this thing called the Empowered Leader for FCA, so that you can share that story, you know, with others and help them. So my other question as an add-on is, you know, why did you want to say yes to that invitation to be a huddle coach and character coach, specifically for Clarkston basketball, where you grew up playing?
Well, I think what comes to mind, I think first, is that once I felt the peace, and I traveled the world looking for it, and once I felt the freedom of what that looked like, I saw other people that whatever they have, I want some of that, but I chased it all down everywhere and couldn't find it. So once I actually found that, it was something. Another thing with joy, I could never experience joy. 25 a night, okay, but man, I could do a little bit more. But man, if I would just did that right, all thinking about how many things but I could not feel joy. So I think once I was able to feel joy in safety within the group, our Friday group, then I could start to understand how beautiful this is, and the transformation began, and the reinvention began. And then I just said, like, I learned that, like, your greatest source, like your purpose typically comes from your greatest source of pain. So what was driving that is that 9-year-old kid, even though it was the best thing that ever happened to me, for that cop and the cops to take me away. I should have never have chosen that again, but that was the best thing that ever happened to me. But that was my pain. And now I want to turn it in my purpose, right? I don't want other or kids or coaches to have to go through that, the burdens of life, whether that's a player like me or it's a coach that's struggling with a divorce or an addiction, right? To know that they are truly loved by our Maker, and that surpasses all understanding. But so that's really kind of my purpose, to realize it's kind of like your winning formula that gets you to the top is actually can turn and be your Achilles heel. But when you place those two in the right position, and you in a healthy relationship with whatever you're successful in, and have God at the center of it, that's an amazing. So I want to be able to, for others to be able to really realize that, whether those are coaches, whether those are players, whomever that is. But the idea of, I carried those burdens for so long, the aspect of discipleship to introducing those. And I'm a very competitive guy, so I like to win. But I always thought, you know, if I give up a little and I believe in this, I'm not going to be as competitive. I'm going to lose an edge. But now what I realize is that you can still be very competitive, win, and actually gain an edge. The peace on the court, the peace on the field, and to do that with other people, you don't have to do that alone. And to actually experience joy. So that's why I said yes. I want to make an impact on Clarkston, the coaches, the players, anybody that I'm involved with. Because I see when I do a pivot and I look back and what God did in my life, he was always there, even though I didn't realize it. So that's the other aspect of it. But when you have others in your life, you're doing the walk with, they can point those things out. So you're not alone in this world. And it's just so much more fruitful to do it. And then when you get my age, you know, okay, you're coaching or you're playing or you're coaching or you're in your career and it's going well. And then something hits, right? When lightning strikes, when there's a problem and you need somebody. Just recently also, I went through a health issue that really scared me. I wasn't able to, I thought I had MS or maybe Parkinson's, and went through that where the lights basically went out and I had nothing. And I thought it was the worst thing in the world. And God reached out to me and showed me that I had everything. And then I had all my brothers right next to me say, hey, you're going to be okay, even if we got you. And then my wife stepping up and say, do you know why I married you? You know, so God is an amazing what he does. So this is for all of us. I just don't want people to walk alone. There's just too much. One, we want to be disciples, but two, it's just, I want everybody to feel that peace, joy, and that freedom that comes with, you know, setting your eyes on Jesus and then following his word.
Amen. So good, man. So good. And the word that popped into my head was awareness. You know, to have the awareness we only have that through the Spirit, but we got to be able to be willing to receive that. So it almost takes a level of discontent with what's going on in our lives in order for us to be ready to receive it. And then, as always, the Lord is always knocking. He's always near us. He's always wanting to draw us in. And sometimes it's through the consequences of our own sinful nature that he does that. I'm just so glad you said yes to coming to that meeting. And we're on this journey together. Clearly, God has something greater planned for you. We both don't know what that's going to look like. And you know what? I'm okay with that because I know his way is greater. And we want to make him known in Clarkston. And I know you live up in Oxford, and we've got a heart for that area as well. And you don't have to be doing all this, you know, but you are. And it's not because you're trying to earn it anymore, right? It's because you feel that agape love that you mentioned earlier when we were talking, that sacrificial, unconditional love. You feel it. And when you feel it, you know it, you trust it, you're just compelled to go out and share it with others. And specifically in the sporting realm, because it's so needed today. There's so many athletes and coaches that have that same mindset. And there's a lot of good that's happening from it. But you hit it right on the head, because many of them won't pursue it because they don't think that they can do that and still have that edge, still have that competitive spirit. I know you can, because we're going to teach them how to do that together, because you can still have excellence and you can still compete like crazy, but you can still give God the glory with all you do, being the best that you can be. Sports is something we get to do, but it's not who we are, right? And that's what this is really all about.
And I think, too, the other piece that's important, too, is what I've learned is it's an alignment. When you get the alignment right, or the other way it's put, like when Jesus Christ is invited into your practice, it's invited into your party, it's invited into your home, and he's close to you, he can do amazing things. So invite him in. You have that awareness, but when you get that alignment right, you can sit there and watch and have evidence of what happens. I'm seeing that on almost a daily basis, the last 2 or 3 weeks of what he is doing. So it's encouraging. I got that alignment there, and things are happening. Things are happening in my own life and other people's lives, and then I'm able to enjoy it as well. So I think if we're getting those coaches aligned properly, you know, making them aware that, like you said, you can still be very, very competitive. And it's important, but it's good news. It's joyful. I just don't want to keep this to myself, you know? Right.
I know. And I appreciate you so much. I want to thank you for coming on. I know this is going to inspire someone, but I just really appreciate it. And I love you, brother.
Yeah. I love you too, Tim. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And
yep. God bless you.
Yep. God bless you as well.
Yep. Well, That was fantastic. And if you are a man or a woman who would love to know more about our ministry or become an empowered volunteer like Reggie, please reach out to us. We would love to have that conversation with you. But until the next time, this is Tim Morton with Southeast Michigan FCA, where our mission is to lead every coach and athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and his church. God bless.